But everywhere he goes, whether it's a new town or a new bar, people just kind of give him a hard time and they rag on him despite the fact that he has great intentions. I'm curious if that's comparable to this sort of world, this culture of toxic fandom, where like if you make a movie, especially if you make a superhero movie, like you have great intentions, but there are always going to be a small yet vocal group of people there can kind of just be toxic.
I understand what you're saying, but when it comes to fans, it is a fan's right to have whatever opinion they want to have. And people are going to be upset because, especially when you're talking about books or games, because you're never going to be the exact person who they had in their head or who they played on Witcher 3, for example. I don't necessarily consider that toxic. I just consider that passionate.
Nerdrotic.com.
The last 10 years should have been a golden age for epic fantasy. Stories that were far too long and complex to adapt and far too expensive to risk on a film now had the perfect template. Streaming. At the perfect time in the post-Game of Thrones era. As the streaming wars were ramping up, studios were racing to find an heir apparent to that show. And they were throwing around ridiculous money to get the rights to things like Conan, The Wheel of Time, The Lord of the Rings, and even Disney brought back Willow and the Dark Crystal. And this is because they had money to burn. Unfortunately, that's exactly what they did. And in the case of the Rings of Power, they're still doing it. But aside from the Rings of Power, I would say the second most embarrassing failure belongs to Netflix's The Witcher, which to date, Netflix has spent roughly $750 million on, including $250 million, that's $250 million to you and me, on seasons 4 and 5. And the reason they bypassed the opportunity to print money to instead go straight to burning it has everything to do with the overcorrection in the post-Me Too era, with the feminization of traditionally masculine intellectual properties. Something at first a lot of people deny, but now it is unquestionable. Case in point, The Witcher, which rose to prominence here in the States through video games. And there was some excitement with the announcement of Henry Cavill playing Geralt of Rivia after he got screwed over by Warner Brothers. Little did we know at the time that he'd get screwed over by Netflix too. But let's be real, the excitement wasn't long-lived once we got that first reveal of Henry as Geralt, which admittedly was universally mocked on the internet. And of course, there was questions with the costuming, particularly that Nilfgaardian ballsack armor. That was followed by some questionable casting choices and all of those feminist writers who were assembled by Netflix's hand-picked Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, who said this back in 2020 about her version of The Witcher. I think American audiences mostly know Geralt from the video games. The answer to why the show adapts the books is very simple, though, and it's that the video games are based on the books. They are an adaptation of the books. For me, it didn't make sense to make an adaptation of something. And now that I reread this a few years later, she was really telling us what she was going to do. What that does is allow us to tell the Witcher story, but in just a different way. I think a lot of video game fans are concerned that we're taking something from them, that we're usurping something that's theirs. And the truth is, I love the video games. They're not going anywhere. They're insanely successful, and I can only hope that our show is that successful. The video games aren't going anywhere, and the books aren't going anywhere. This is just a third way to enjoy these same characters and this same world. That may sound familiar to you, and you will find out why later on in this video, because we certainly got Lauren Hissrich's version of The Witcher, one that led to Henry Cavill leaving, one that was the very definition of the Netflix adaptation. Welcome to the supercut of the epic failure of The Witcher. The bad news keeps coming, and it gets worse. But first, I'd like to welcome the over 630,000 of you joining me on this journey down the rabbit hole of common sense extremism. Before this video, you heard from the very popular actor, not adult pretender, Henry Cavill, and we will hear more of his wisdom later. Now let's recap the series of events that just happened over the last few months that put The Witcher firmly in DOA status. There certainly has been a lot of cope around these parts lately, and it has been brilliant. And I'm not saying this is the best example, but it's just another one this year in the year of the Hollywood reckoning of get woke, go broke, and then beg your fans to still watch the show. Now, the first in these series of events comes from former Witcher writer Bo DeMeo. The Witcher former writer recalls staff actively mocking the source material. Bo DeMeo shed light on some of the lack of respect towards The Witcher's source material noticed by diehard fans in the show. The same diehard fans that were called the same things we have been called every time we legitimately criticize something. Although Andrzej Sapkowski, the pride of Poland's The Witcher, didn't really gain worldwide recognition until CD Projekt Red's games started to become more popular, the latter were never meant to be a like-for-like recreation of the novels, even if there are still tons of references to them in the vast world of The Witcher 3. Netflix's series has set out to do something similar, following the book's story, but changing certain themes, moments, plot lines, and the overall personality of some characters to suit its needs. In other words, completely changing the source material. Those changes do require you have to respect the work before you're allowed to add to its legacy, as writer Bo DeMeo commented during a recent Instagram Q&A session via Sci-Fi and Fantasy Gazette, something found lacking in The Witcher since some of the writers were not fans or actively dislike the books and games, even actively mocking the source material. It's a recipe for disaster and bad morale. Perhaps it's no surprise then that within days of this article, we heard this: Liam Hemsworth is replacing Henry Cavill for The Witcher Season 4. There is no replacing Henry Cavill in this series. It's dead. Interesting wording in your headline. While Liam Hemsworth is indeed replacing Henry Cavill, it's because Henry Cavill left. And the timing couldn't have been worse for Netflix, because all of this happened right before the big rollout of The Witcher prequel, Blood Origin. Never heard of it? Don't recognize this as The Witcher? I don't blame you, because honestly, I couldn't tell the difference between this, Willow, The Rings of Power, and Wheel of Time. It just looks like a very diverse group of no-name adult pretenders in rags. To be fair, it does have Michelle Yeoh, who has been great in some things and awful in others.
Every minute you remain here, your counselors must reorganize their tiny male brains to rationalize why it isn't them standing on the dais.
And it's impossible not to mention the Change.org petition, which currently sits at 279,123 signatures. Netflix, you must keep Henry Cavill as The Witcher and replace the writers instead. But a better barometer of how the fans actually feel is the Blood Origin trailers that are currently on YouTube and getting ratioed into oblivion. But even before this, there were whispers, hints, clues, signs, straight up portents that this was going to be an intersectional woke disaster. Writers from the Witcher Netflix series. We will have a cat mother, a patriarchy smasher in Haley Hall, a witch, and etc. Sure looks promising. But I would say the biggest red flag came up prior to season 2 from Henry Cavill himself.
The showrunner has a particular vision for the show and for the characters in the show. And I don't know if you've read the books, but the books, certainly the first few, there's very much from a Geralt perspective. And so with the shift of the showrunner's vision, where it's an ensemble cast more so than a singular lead, and the perspective is shifted to be almost more of a Cirilla Yennefer perspective. And so it's about finding my character's place within that vision, and making sure that I do everything I can to be as faithful to the source material as possible that I can be within the structure set out for me. Yeah, it's about finding that place in there where I can do both. I can help the showrunner realize their vision, and also bring everything I can from the books and from that psychopathic, like, loyalist nature of mine into my own personal character.
Reminder, The Witcher was one of Henry Cavill's dream projects that he walked away from. So whatever spin you hear, we know the truth. It's out there, and damn it, he was trying to tell us. The first season of The Witcher was a massive success for the streaming service, and season 2 is on the way relatively shortly. Well, it has since come out, and it wasn't a massive success. Last year, The Witcher showrunner Lauren Schmidt Hissrich made it clear that she has enough ideas for the show to run for another 7 seasons. Well, that's not likely now. While those plans seemed overly ambitious at the time, they certainly did, and they do now. Cavill has said he's good with that plan, but he wants to make sure that those in charge make one big promise. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter, the actor, who is also the most recent iteration of Superman, said that he is willing to come back to The Witcher for its entire long run, as long as the showrunners continue making high-quality programming. Cavill said that they also need to make sure that the stories that are pumped out stay true to the vision of the author of The Witcher books, Andrzej Sapkowski. Then, of course, The Witcher Season 2 came out right around Christmas, and it was completely forgettable. But who could forget the back and forth between Lauren Hissrich and Jeremy from The Quartering, where she was forced to bend the knee to the woke mob for even talking to him? But that's not all. This brings us to the latest article from Tech Radar. Speaking exclusively to Tech Radar at the Witcher Blood Origin UK junket, Hissrich said she sympathizes with viewers over Cavill leaving the hit Netflix show. However, Hissrich simultaneously appealed to fans to stick with the TV series even if Cavill won't be a part of its cast for much longer. Of course, because she wants to keep her platform. Hissrich's response comes 5 weeks after it was revealed the show's lead actor won't return as Geralt of Rivia after The Witcher Season 3, the fantasy series which returns in Q2 of 2023, and it's already DOA, will bring the curtain down on Cavill's reign, with Liam Hemsworth, discount Hemsworth, brother of Marvel movie star Chris Hemsworth, replacing Cavill from Season 4 onwards. I highly doubt there's going to be an onwards. Then the article once again brings up the change.org petition, which we just talked about, the one that wants to keep Henry Cavill and sack the showrunners. And again, that is the single most logical decision you can make. It's the only decision you should be making. I don't care what egos you have to bruise. I don't care what contracts you have to break. Your show was much more likely to survive with Henry Cavill and without Lauren Hissrich and her writing team. Now it has no chance. But this is what happens when you hire for optics. When you cast people in certain positions like showrunners, writers, or producers, and you find out that they're not really qualified for the job, it gets a little difficult to get rid of them because of the optics. For her part, Hissrich said she completely understands the fan anger leveled at her and the rest of the show's creators. I'm wondering if that's in reference to Beau DeMayo. However, she also called on The Witcher's fan base to continue supporting its cast and crew. Why? Give us a reason, adding that failure to do so would be to the detriment of the upcoming spin-off Blood Origin and future seasons of The Witcher's main series. Hate to break this to you, sweetheart. That was you. You and your writers drove off Henry Cavill. You and your writers drove off the fans by not respecting the source material. It's a big deal for us too, Hissrich admitted when Tech Radar mentioned how fans had negatively responded to Cavill's impending departure. And that's the thing. There's a lot of talk and rumors about, and we fully understand why fans are going there. I can't help but think she means not only Henry Cavill leaving, but why he is leaving, and it doesn't sound like it's a denial. And that is the single most obvious reason why this entire staff should be fired right now. You were given a potential franchise that could have gone on for years, and you made it a feminist platform. Here's where the begging starts. What I will say is please come back for The Witcher Season 3. What you will ask is please come back for The Witcher Season 3 so that we can continue to do this. So you're saying if we don't come back, we won't get a Witcher Season 4? Thanks for letting us know. Obviously, that Cavill's departure is huge news, but what I don't want to do is this has to stay about Blood Origin. Declan DeBarra, Blood Origin's showrunner, the cast and the crew, this is their time in the spotlight. Oh, well, it's not going to last very long. The Witcher Blood Origin includes a major change to series Bloodline. Lauren S. Hissrich reveals Netflix The Witcher Blood Origin features a major change to the lore. It appears The Witcher Blood Origin will add a new ancestor to series Bloodline, one also involved in the creation of the first Witcher and the conjunction of the spheres. So they're going to completely make this up, and as with all prequels to established properties, Hollywood likes to do them so a girl could do it first, which already happened in the books, but it wasn't the right kind of girl. They had to correct that too. And once again, it's no surprise we hear this. Originally announced as a 6-episode show, Blood Origin was cut down significantly. And I'm guessing if there's a Witcher season 4, and that's a big if, it will be cut down significantly in budget and episode count. A lot could happen between now and 2025. And for what it was, I liked season 1 and defended it. It had a lot of what people liked: Geralt, monsters, and boobs. But it also had plenty of cringe like this.
Because I'm a girl and girls can't be witches, which I think is probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I want more. I have to be more because I don't know what to do in Blaviken for the rest of my life except go to the boring old market.
So the future tavern wench wants more. Maybe she could take a women's studies course at the University of Blaviken. And who could forget Geralt spending the entire final episode of the first season injured in the back of a horse cart? But not to worry, because according to Lauren Hissrich, once Henry Cavill is gone, they're going to be much more canonical. God, that sounds familiar. Rings of Power Season 2, anyone? Bottom line, Season 2 was a disaster. It's been all downhill from there. Netflix should have fired this entire writing staff, brought in new showrunners, and made Henry happy, and they would have a successful series. Now, that's not happening. But if the show doesn't satisfy you, well, there's always The Witcher 4 from CD Projekt Red, right?
My name is Piotr Nielubowicz. I'm a member of the board and CFO at CD Projekt. I'm also personally involved in a range of environmental, social, and governance initiatives, ESG for short.
You what?
Okay, never mind. It looks like they're going to try to outdo The Last of Us Part 2. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another shining example of Hollywood looking for that mythical modern audience. Now, they didn't find the audience, but they did find something else: failure. And now The Witcher without Henry Cavill is going to look just like Blood Origins, or Wheel of Time, or Willow, or Rings of Power. They're all interchangeable, and I want you to think about this again to bring up the mythical modern audience in their never-ending quest to search for that audience and be different by subverting cultural norms. They all look the same. And what's the big difference between the previously mentioned fantasies and House of the Dragon? Masculinity. And The Witcher just lost theirs, and poor Henry Cavill is used once again by Netflix as a bait and switch. I hope that isn't the case with Argyle as well. The poor guy was born a decade or two too late, because he should be the biggest star in Hollywood right now, and James Gunn, he should most definitely be Superman. Now, one of the reasons he's so popular is because he had the fans back. I want you to look for a lot of "I told you so's" and
"F you, I was right, f you, I was right"
over the next year. Currently, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery is the flop heard round the world, and it is competing with The Flash to become the biggest bomb of the year, and it is certainly the biggest financial disaster in Lucasfilm's history, or in this case, I should say, herstory.
I have some major problems with this movie. One of the problems I have with the movie is that Phoebe's character was an asshole.
Wow.
And that's a good thing for Netflix, because fewer people have noticed A, The Witcher Season 3 even came out, and B, that it's abysmal. A while back, I made a video called The Witcher is Doomed, one that was covered by Asmongold. Thanks, dude. Well, here we are 7 short months later, and the beginning of the end is here.
The chat says that he's leaving because he doesn't agree with the storylines that the writers have been developing. If that's the case, I can completely understand that, because Henry is such a huge fan of the games and the books, and the writers on the Netflix series have chosen, for whatever reason they did so, to deviate quite severely from the books and the games. I personally don't understand the choice.
Now, all of this could have been avoided if you listen to the fans, just like with Kathleen Kennedy over at Lucasfilm. If you had listened to the fans, you had multiple times to fire her: after The Last Jedi, after Solo, after The Rise of Skywalker, after she fired Gina Carano. But beyond all rational explanation, she is still in charge, and look where it's gotten them. We've also seen this with Chris Chibnall and the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker. Those two were only shown the door after the show had completely cratered. Same goes for Alex Kurtzman, who's been killing Star Trek now for years. Yes, he did have a recent success with Picard Season 3 one he had nothing to do with, but now he's gone right back to killing Star Trek, and now 2 of his shows have been canceled with more to come.
This kid's got to go back to preschool.
Michelle Yeoh is set to star in her own Star Trek movie.
Oh, it. Brent.
And now Netflix is doing the same thing. The second Henry Cavill started having a problem with Lauren Schmidt Hissridge's writing, she and her entire staff should have been gone. Admittedly, despite it having problems, I did like season 1. Gave it a 7 out of 10, but this is the portion of the video where I get some I told you so's.
I told you so. I told you.
I earned that. Despite my age, I'm still capable of being a sweet summer child. Now let's do a brief recap of The Witcher's road to failure. After a very successful season 1 where Netflix thought they had their Game of Thrones, we started hearing some concerning comments from Henry Cavill.
With the shift of the showrunner's vision, where it's an ensemble cast more so than a singular lead, and the perspectives is shifted to be almost more of a Cyrilla Yennefer perspective. And so it's about finding my character's place within that vision and making sure that I do everything I can to be as faithful to the source material as possible within the structure set out for me.
That was Henry trying to temper our expectations, and that's a good thing because then season 2 came out and they absolutely butchered the book Blood of Elves. After Lauren Schmidt Hissridge completely ignored the fan complaints of there not being enough Witcher in The Witcher, she decided to put less Witcher in The Witcher for season 2. Then we heard from former Witcher writer Beau DeMayo that writers on the show were openly mocking the source material. Then on October 13th of 2022, Henry Cavill announced he was leaving The Witcher, and it all gets worse from here. Shortly after that, a petition was started with over 300,000 signatures. Netflix, you must keep Henry Cavill as The Witcher and replace the writers instead. Then after that, we started to understand why Henry not only left, he ran. Blood Origin was released with a whopping 13% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 1.4 user score on Metacritic, making a pretty good case of being worst fantasy series in a year that Willow and the Rings of Power came out. But that was just a taste. What did Lauren Hissrich and her patriarchy-smashing writing team have up their sleeves next? This brings us to The Witcher Season 3. First off, props to Henry Cavill for being a true professional. Part of being a professional is showing restraint, and I'm sure the first time he saw that script, he wanted to set it on fire and tell him to piss off. In season 3, just like in season 2 and actually season 1, everyone's after Ciri. As the synopsis goes, as monarchs, mages, and beasts of the continent compete to capture her, Geralt takes Ciri of Sintra into hiding, determined to protect his newly reunited family against those who threaten to destroy it. Season 3 is based on the book A Time for Contempt, which is appropriate because Lauren Hissrich has obvious contempt for The Witcher and men in general. At this point, you should just call the show The Witch Her, because this is clearly the Yennefer show, and it always has been. One more time, as
I told you so.
Yennefer, Ciri, and their sidekick Geralt are all together again, except there's a little problem. I seem to recall last season that Yennefer betrayed both Geralt and Ciri, and then Yennefer goes so far as to try to sacrifice Ciri to get her magic back, but apparently Ciri and Yennefer worked it out before the season started, and it only takes a couple episodes for Geralt to forgive Yennefer. But why take the time to have Yennefer authentically redeem herself after, quite frankly, butchering her character last season when you could just blow past it and get back to girl bossing? Anya Chalotra as Yennefer and Freya Allan as Ciri are fine, but they're given nothing to work with this season. Just like last season, and I know this comes from the books, but Ciri is just a girl who's the key to everything. That might have been new at one time, but it's not now. It's just a tired old trope. And Yasker is back to sing another song for Dan Vast to cover. And just in case you haven't heard, Yasker's totally bi now because Netflix has been pretty subtle about it. And Yasker spends most of his time in a will gay, won't gay with Prince Radovid.
I am not gay. I have relationships with women and sex with men.
And I got news for you. That means you're gay.
Then there's our list of girl bosses. There's the good girl boss, Tisea, the bad girl boss, Philippa, the dumb girl boss and elf, Francesca, the former girl boss, Fringilla, who's put on some COVID weight, body positivity girl boss, Margarita, and Ava, who's technically a they-them boss, and a whole host of other characters, including Triss, Istrid, and Gahir, and I can tell you right now, I don't care about any of them, not enough to even tell you what happens. Sure, there's a couple of decent moments with Lars Mikkelsen's Stregobor or Graham McTavish's Dijkstra, but they are fleeting. And brief moments do not make a show good. And I don't even know what the point was to bring in Emperor Amir to just do his best Cersei Lannister impression.
When you have finished this mission, we shall have everything that we want.
And Bart Edwards is too young. He looks like Ciri's older brother, not her father. And this brings us to the show's titular character, The Witcher, Geralt of Rivia, played by Henry Cavill, who's just an afterthought. We're told that this season is far more book accurate, I guess, except for when it isn't. Our boy Geralt is done dirty again. He's more babysitter than protector, and he goes on more inane side quests that didn't happen in the book, including one where he finds a fake Ciri and has to fight a fleshy girl bits monster, whose heads are hanging off the wall and look suspiciously like testicles.
I told you so.
Now, this is the only monster he fights alone. He gets help from Ciri on the other two, and of course she gets the kill on the final one. But why see Geralt of Rivia slay monsters when you can see him sitting around and talking to Jaskier, sitting next to beds, and crying for his mama? As you may or may not know, Netflix cut this season in half to try to milk Henry Cavill, for lack of a better description, for all he's worth. And if you don't think Netflix is keenly aware that their show is dead, I give you this from Forbes. Netflix throws Liam Hemsworth under the bus in a desperate marketing bid for The Witcher Season 3. And here's the tweet from The Witcher, just in case you need a reminder, yes, he's still Geralt in Season 3. Ouch! And where does Lauren Hissrich decide to end this first part of the season? With a ball.
Ha! Gay!
Which is strange because this show has no balls. And it doesn't end there. This also happens to be the worst episode of the worst season. The episode is mostly told in flashback with multiple repeated scenes, and the big twist is we're not seeing different perspectives, we're simply seeing different angles. I'm not doing this awful writing justice. Again, we see the same scenes twice, we hear the same dialogue twice, just from a different angle. Episode 5 was called The Art of Illusion, and if you weren't sure all is not what it seems, they had some bards singing All Is Not What It Seems over and over again.
All is not as it seems.
It looks like Lauren Hissrich went to the Rian Johnson School of Dumb Filmmaking, meant to make you believe it's smart. And I know the costuming and the sets have never been spectacular in The Witcher, but it has devolved to being indiscernible from things like Willow, The Wheel of Time, and The Rings of Power. And things like time and distance are completely thrown out the window this season. You have no idea where you are. You have no idea how long anything takes. We know these events take over weeks and months, but in the show it feels like a couple of days. Put simply, this show is dumb. Tell me, why would you drop off all of your things on the top of a cliff when you have to climb down to catch a ferry? How does a peasant get such expensive, modern-looking hair?
That's racist!
Why did a monster decide not to eat the diverse cast members?
That's racist!
Why do all the mages who we are told are beautiful in the books look like they work for the Netflix marketing department?
That's racist!
And how much was the budget cut for this season? The CG largely was laughably bad, including this Ciri horse riding scene. This is where we get to see the Wild Hunt, and if you watch Blood Origin, which the vast majority of you didn't, you would know that the mighty and formidable King Eredin is actually just a wafy guy who's mad because his boyfriend died. When the show isn't abysmal, it's incredibly boring, and it's pretty clear Henry Cavill made the right decision. And it looks like the people agree because it is getting destroyed. Thomas S., 1 star. Started off okay, not really, but pacing was strange. Yes, it was. Characters' traveling speed made no sense. Hard to figure out where scenes were taking place, and so much side character nonsense that just drags on for no reason. But honestly, watching the last episode, 5, was one of the most painful, difficult things I have watched in a while. A shitty song played over and over again as dialogue and scenes are repeated again and again, all for a reveal we already knew since like season 1. 1. Josh A., half star, just a teenage love drama. Barely made it through the first couple of episodes, but decided to reluctantly chug on. To my dismay, the last episode was the worst of them all. Ion G., half star. Season 3 is more accurate to the books, meaning random Easter eggs from the books without context, and the meaning changed so much that it makes no sense. They ruined impactful scenes from the books just to put them in this rotten show. Bad cringe characters are not even book accurate, and I think he meant to say neither are the monsters. This seems like bad fan fiction. Let me play devil's advocate. Maybe Lauren Hisrich and her team of writers didn't adapt the books properly because they wanted to play to their strengths. The only problem with that argument is, as writers, they don't have any strengths. And it's become abundantly clear Lauren and her team can't write men. But to be fair, they're only slightly worse at that than writing women. I'll remind you that we are going into the 3rd month of the writer's strike, and I would also like to mention that I've spent the last couple of weeks watching things like Strange New Worlds, The Flash, Secret Invasion, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery, and now The Witcher Season 3, and I'm just gonna say, you're not making a good case for yourself. Go ahead, stay on strike.
All right, today we're going to talk about how we can find out and how much we can find out and what it takes to get there. So first we have to decide how much do we want to find out. So let's say in this case, I want to find out at a level of 7. Okay, so I find that level on my graph and I come horizontally to my gradient line. Where it intersects with my gradient line, I'm going to come straight down to where it intersects with my around line. That there is going to tell me how much I have to around to find out what I need to find out. See, as you can see, the more you around, the more you're going to find out. And also, if you stay down here and you never around, you'll never find out. So I hope this lesson is helpful. Thank you.
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 827,000 practitioners of common sense. You're brilliant, by the way. And the 40% who haven't subscribed yet, you're not so bad either. Let's talk about Netflix's biggest failure, The Witcher. But let's briefly go back in time to 2019, a time before COVID. There was a pretty good economy. Game of Thrones just ended in disaster, opening the door for possibly a new fantasy series. Enter The Witcher.
Everyone has been wondering, what are we going to do now that Game of Thrones has completed its run? Well, we have the answer for you. It's called The Witcher.
Despite casting fan favorite and fan of the books and games Henry Cavill, there was still a lot of skepticism. There was the additional diverse and inclusive casting that may reflect the Netflix HR department, but didn't really reflect the source material.
For me, it is all about the books. I'm always of the mind, if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. And I don't think they're broken. And I absolutely love those books.
Obviously, it's a book that was written at a certain time. It was written by a Polish author. And I had a feeling that most people imagine these characters to be white only. I am trying to tell stories where other people who may have had my experience can also find themselves in The Witcher. And that includes making characters have different skin colors than perhaps fans imagined.
It's a big part of the pop culture history of Poland, which is also, I think, quite important.
In many ways, the Witcher world has a very European basis. We wanted to give the continent a slightly more global feel.
Which tends to be a major red flag when it comes to the approach to the source material. There was the Nilfgaardian ballsack armor.
What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Yet prior to the show's release, showrunner Lauren Hisrich tried to quell some of that skepticism and made a statement that sounded pretty good. Will I move through the book and start changing people's cultural heritage and ethnic makeup or gender because I'm feeling really liberal that day? No, that's ridiculous. And contrary to what any writer would do, because we are storytellers. Story comes first. Well, it turns out that this was only one of the first signs that Lauren Hisrich has a little problem telling the truth. And to borrow a phrase from the fantasy series that The Witcher hoped to be someday, words are wind.
Can we get some cash money now?
Plenty of dollars.
Still, season 1 was a massive success, one of the most watched shows on Netflix, and maybe they did have their Game of Thrones.
It's very flattering. I don't know if it's a fair comparison yet. Time will tell, because the only comparison you can truly make is popularity and how well this does versus how well that does.
Unfortunately, it was all downhill from there. There's an old book out there that says,
"Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall."
Was season 1 successful because of Henry Cavill, despite the writers and the producers from Netflix? Or was The Witcher season 1 successful because of the writers and producers from Netflix, despite Henry Cavill? If you chose the latter, then you're probably a writer and producer for The Witcher on Netflix.
How dare you!
Season 1 of The Witcher had an 89% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which was higher than the critic score. Then Season 2 dipped almost 50% to 56%. And Season 3 has dipped more than 50% from the 56% at 22%.
The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you.
And let's keep in mind, after the success of Season 1, there was all this talk of a 7-season plan, which looks like it's been abandoned. One that Henry was down with initially on one condition. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter in November 2021, Cavill said he was absolutely committed to telling Geralt's story for 7 seasons on one condition: as long as we keep telling great stories which honor Sapkowski's work.
I think they're ready for us.
Well, I'm ready also. For what?
You know what? We're going to discover together.
Well, Lauren Hissrich has said quite a bit over the last few years, and it turns out the vast majority of it is bullshit.
So it would be a straight translation of the books. You know, I just think there's so much material that I don't feel the need to start inventing my own to keep it going.
She also said The Witcher Season 3 will be very close to the books, except when it isn't. And we were told Henry Cavill would get a heroic send-off. To be fair, I do believe Lauren was being 100% honest when she was begging fans to come back to the show after Henry left. Netflix, like Amazon with the Rings of Power, did end up getting their Game of Thrones, except they went straight to Season 8. And just to pile on a little bit more, those audience scores are reflected on other review aggregates like IMDb and Metacritic, which are all-time lows for the series. And if that wasn't enough for Lauren Hissrich and her crack team of writers who were smoking crack, Season 3 Part 1 of The Witcher lost 50% of its audience from Episode 1 to Episode 5. Now, you could just chalk this up as another show that had a pretty decent Season 1 and then just fell off a cliff, like Westworld, Altered Carbon, Umbrella Academy, or even going back to Heroes. The only difference is a lot of the fans saw this one coming a mile away, and now that Part 2 has come out, it is indeed a fart in the wind, and you can tell I'm putting off even wanting to talk about it because I freaking hated it. Now, there might be others, but I can't think of a TV series that fell from grace so fast and hard. Alls I know is I went from the piece of crap Secret Invasion finale right into the hot garbage that was the last 3 episodes of The Witcher, keeping in mind that the writers of both shows are currently on strike because they want more money. Just like with the Rings of Power last year, to a lesser extent, The Witcher Season 3 has united the internet. These are the roundest of times and the find outest of times. And I do find it interesting, although this wasn't intended, that the title of the 6th episode of Season 3 describes everything that's going on with Netflix, The Witcher, Lauren Hissrich, and Henry Cavill. Everyone has a plan until you're punched in the face.
Boy, f***ing hell, what was that for?
As with this entire series, The Witcher Season 3 Part 2 could be summed up with this.
They're all searching for you, Ciri.
Princess Cirilla! Ciri!
Ciri!
Where's the girl?
Where's Ciri? He's looking for Ciri. I need to find Ciri. Where is Cirilla? Have you seen Cirilla?
Ciri! Ciri!
Where are you, Ciri?
Ciri, are you here? We're looking for Ciri.
Where's Ciri?
For the sake of your valuable time, and more importantly, your sanity, as well as mine, we're going to get through this as fast as possible. As you may or may not recall, because you probably didn't watch the show, we left off The Witcher Season 3 Part 1 with a banquet, with repeated scenes and repeated dialogue to make it look smart. The mages were conclaving, and apparently, all is not what it seems. How did I know that?
All is not as it seems. All is not as it seems. All is not as it seems.
It's not what it seems.
This brings us to the dinner theater adaptation of The Thanad Coup.
Round 1. Fight. Hadouken!
And there's a big battle between the Conclave mages, Redania, who in this show I like to call Retardia, and the Skyatel, who are the elves under the orders of Nilfgaard. And everybody's there, including but not limited to Tissaia, Francesca, Margarita, Philippa, Sabrina, Triss, Fringilla and her COVID weight? Sure, there's a couple of dudes as well, including Kahir and Philavandrel, who ends up getting blown up. The best description will be women and some men fight some women and some men. Most of the men die, women most affected. You know who wasn't at the coup? Ciri, who got abandoned by her babysitter Jaskier so he could have some gay love. Yennefer was able to easily escape the coup to find Ciri in the middle of nowhere to abandon her once again to go girl boss at the coup. Geralt, of course, sat the entire thing out, but not to worry. He finally got his big battle. The battle they have been building up to for almost an entire episode. Geralt of Rivia and Velgefort's beach off.
If I wasn't severely injured, I would beat you off right now, Ken.
I'll beach off with you any day, Ken.
Hold my ice cream, Ken. All right, Ken, you're on. Let's beach off.
Geralt gets his ass handed to him, and I shit you not, he gets sidelined for the final 2 episodes. Geralt is taken to Broccoli. I'm sorry, the female utopia of Broccolin, where the hippie ladies heal him, and he's in this episode for about 3 minutes. And the rest of this hour-long episode is Ciri wandering around the desert being stalked by the goddess of angry feminism, Falca.
Powerful women have been labeled insane since the dawn of time. It's bullshit. Always has been, always will be.
Just in case you didn't get it the first 10 or 20 times in this series, Ciri is the girl who is the key to everything.
One of the more important things about Ciri is that we will slowly discover that she is the main character of the Witcher saga. Not Geralt, not Yennefer, it's Ciri's story.
You are the key to everything, Cirilla.
That's right, Ciri has finally taken center stage from Yennefer. And in Henry Cavill's final episode of The Witcher, he spends the vast majority of it in physical therapy. Sure, by the very end of the episode, he ends up healed, teaming up with Jaskier and my producer X-Ray Girl, Milva. And in Henry Cavill's final battle in the Witcher series, he kills a bunch of Nilfgaardian goons who stole a girl's doll. And of course, at the end of the fight, he has to be saved by my producer X-Ray Girl, Milva. And that's it for Henry Cavill as far as the rest of the cast. Jaskier is still gay, Yennefer's still a girl boss, Radovid becomes king, and the lost Ciri is found and saved by a bunch of adolescent cosplayers who cut through men twice their size like butter. And the only character to make a logical decision in this show as a surrogate for the audience is Tessera when she ends it all. And Henry Cavill is free from this intersectional feminist fever dream. And sure, I have some questions that'll never get answered, and honestly, I don't care. How did Fringilla and her COVID weight find her way to the coup when the last time we saw her, she was drunk in a tavern? How does Kahir, who has been searching for Ciri this entire series, just randomly run across her and then heel turns, begs for forgiveness, begs to be killed, and when she doesn't do it, he runs off to save her from his own people and says, "I'll see you later"? How are people able to come and go as they please during this elaborate coup? And what's up with very natural redhead Deus Ex Triss, who came out of nowhere to save Yennefer and later save Geralt? Guess she's just hanging out waiting to save people when the script calls for it. And how in the hell did she get him to Broccoli? How could anyone responsible for the show Blood Origin, which severely alters the lore, and then they connect it directly to The Witcher, who has lied to the audience multiple times following failure with another abysmal failure, still keep her job?
I'm always like...
My highly weaponized autistic research team has crunched the numbers, and I have the total screen time of Henry Cavill's Geralt of Rivia. Total running time for episodes 1 through 5, not counting credits, is 4 hours and 35 minutes. Geralt's screen time was 73 minutes, 24.8 seconds. Henry Cavill is only on screen for 27.97% of Season 3, Part 1. As far as Season 3, Part 2 is concerned, it's even worse. Total runtime for episodes 6 through 8, not counting credits, is 2 hours, 30 minutes, and 31 seconds. Henry Cavill's total screen time, 25 minutes and 3 seconds. That means Henry Cavill is only in 16.67% of the final 3 episodes. So it won't surprise you at all to hear again that these are some of the lowest rated Witcher episodes ever and some of the worst episodes of TV I've seen in years. Long story short, these 3 episodes were hot garbage. Blood Origin bad. They were incomprehensible, illogical, contrived. The worst kind of fan fiction that gives fan fiction a bad name. But don't feel bad if you have trouble with this show because you didn't read the books or play the games. You would only be slightly more lost than the people who read the books and played the games. The Witcher was done the very second Henry Cavill announced he was leaving, and we are simply here observing the inevitable and chronicling its demise. But not to worry, Witcher producer Tomek Baginski has an explanation as to why his show sucks. It's our fault. From Forbes, The Witcher producer blames stupid Americans and emotional young people for the show's failures.
That's retarded.
Yet, the universe unfolds as it should, and thanks to the Writers Guild and Film Actors Guild strike, The Witcher Season 4 has been delayed indefinitely. Far be it from me to give a multi-billion-dollar corporation unsolicited advice from my spare bedroom surrounded by my plastic pals, but what the hell? Cancel this show. Well, that wraps it up for Season 3, and the only question left was, if it was that bad with Henry Cavill there, how bad will it be with him gone? And it turns out, predictably, it was pretty fucking bad.
I'm the most annoying guy on set because I'm saying, excuse me, you do realize that this should be happening and they wouldn't do that, and you haven't read this, that means this would be impossible. And everyone's just going, Henry, just shut up and do the thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do the thing because he wouldn't do it this way, and he can do this. The first thing he said to me was, I didn't write this, it's not my fault. This isn't me.
I know that he watches the episodes, I know that he likes them, but he does not actually want to be a day-to-day part of the process.
Just coming to the set and reading and giving notes. Listen, I like it, but maybe, just maybe, we could shift it a little bit here or there.
Never.
Maybe I gave them some ideas, but they never listened. They never listened.
Netflix, in their infinite wisdom, decided to remind the world that their version of The Witcher still exists. And I can hear most of you now asking, it does? Yes, except this time, it's not going to feature Henry Cavill as a guest star in his own show surrounded by a bunch of fanfic feminist gobbledygook. Now we have Liam Hemsworth taking over for Henry Cavill as a guest star in his own show surrounded by a bunch of fanfic feminist gobbledygook. And it turns out this romantasy fanfic feminist gobbledygook was very expensive. We have learned very recently that this show cost Netflix over $500 million. Now, to be fair, you could probably find $500 million in change in Ted Sarandos' casting couch, but it's still a very expensive embarrassment and one that was easily avoidable. If you feel like not a lot of people have been talking about The Witcher, it's because they haven't since Henry Cavill left, including Netflix, who decided to drop their first clip late at night on a Saturday. And the reactions to this clip went down about as well as you would think. But before we get to that, let's take a little trip down memory, or in this case, Mamory Lane. Because as you know, the ladies of Hollywood want and deserve accolades for their successes, but they often seem to avoid the accountability for their failures, and I'm here for equality because I think women can fuck up just as much as men, because without a doubt, The Witcher was ruined by a woman. The Witcher premiered on December 20th, 2019, and while being mostly panned by critics, it was generally loved by audiences. Hell, I even liked it, giving it a 7 out of 10, and it was generally considered a success. And because it was epic fantasy, and it also premiered the same year as the disastrous Season 8, some were calling it the heir apparent to Game of Thrones.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
And that was despite all the concerns many Witcher fans had prior to Season 1 with the hiring of very questionable writers. But as they say, hindsight is 20/20, and I would chalk up most of the success of Season 1 to Henry Cavill. But unfortunately, it was Lauren Hisrich who took all the credit and saw the success of Season 1 as a man date, or in this case, a woman date, who went on to contort and vandalize the lore from the games and the books to fit something from her worldview, a Witcher for a modern audience. And that audience was the person she stares at in the mirror every day. The first real signs of trouble came from this little soundbite that turned out to be a dire warning from Henry Cavill prior to Season 2.
The showrunner has a particular vision for the show and for the characters in the show. And I don't know if you read the books, but the books, certainly the first few, there's very much from a Geralt perspective. And so with the shift of the showrunner's vision, where it's an ensemble cast more so than a singular lead, and the perspective is shifted to be almost more of a Cyrilla Yennefer perspective. And so it's about finding my character's place within that vision, and making sure that I do everything I can to be as faithful to the source material as possible that I can be within the structure set out for me.
And lo and behold, season 2 came out, butchering the lore of the book. It was based on blood of elves, and there was an unsurprising dramatic loss in viewership. After season 2, we would learn what led to this disaster and future disasters from former writer and producer Beau DeMayo, who was also the former writer and producer of X-Men 97, who is currently ripping Kevin Feige on the daily. DeMayo said, "I've been on a show, namely Witcher, where some of the writers actively dislike the books and games, even actively mocking the source material," DeMayo explained. "It's a recipe for disaster and bad for morale, and really bad for your show." Lauren Hissrich would even bitch openly about Henry's commitment to the lore. And Beau wasn't the only one. There's also the writer of The Witcher, Andrzej Sapkowski, saying this.
Maybe I gave them some ideas, but they never listened. They never listened.
Then in October 2022, Henry announced via Instagram that he was leaving the show. And who could blame him? Because a couple of months after that, Netflix decided to release the Witcher prequel, Blood Origin, where they departed from the lore just a little bit and took the formidable, mighty, evil Eridan, the leader of the Wild Hunt, and turned him into a spurned, disgruntled gay man, making Blood Origin a good candidate to be the worst fantasy series in a year where they released Willow and the Rings of Power. And that was followed by Witcher Season 3, where Henry Cavill is in only 1/3 of his own series. Unsurprisingly, viewership dropped again from Season 2 to Season 3, which was supposed to be based on Andrzej Sapkowski's book, A Time for Contempt, but it became crystal clear that Lauren Hissrich had contempt for the lore, the audience, and Henry Cavill. And as I've said before, Henry needs to fire his agent because he's been used as the bait and switch quite a bit, from The Witcher to Enola Holmes to Argylle. And while The Witcher died when Henry Cavill left, let's be real, the mortal wound started in season 2. And that's where obviously Netflix made its biggest mistake. Instead of siding with Henry Cavill and, I don't know, hiring new writers, they stuck with Lauren Hissrich and her feminists. And now the heir apparent to Game of Thrones that was planned for 7 seasons was reduced to 5 and canceled. And the last 2 seasons are being filmed back to back, making them totally 2 seasons and not just one split up. No word yet on episode count, and no word yet on how much the budget was reduced, but considering this clip that they just decided to release in the middle of the night, it looks like a lot. And of course, the responses are what you would think, including but not limited to people saying Liam Hemsworth is the Temu Witcher. But of course, Elric fans will say The Witcher is Temu Elric. Again, this was a clip, not a fan film, released at about 8 p.m. Eastern on a Saturday night, on a weekend dominated by the very sad news of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, rest in peace. And considering during Netflix's big Ta-Dum presentation, where they showcase all the content coming out over the next couple of years, and they didn't speak a single word or show a single frame from The Witcher, it looks like to you they're trying to bury this. I would agree, and can you blame them? I mean, admittedly, it looks like a very expensive fan film, but a fan film nonetheless, and poor Liam Hemsworth. You know, you and Henry both need to fire your agents. I guess the good news is, based on precedent, Liam's only going to be in about 1/3 of his own series, so we won't have much work to do other than running around with a gay Yasker while they follow the main character of the series, Yennefer, in search of the girl who's the key to everything, Ciri.
Princess Cyrilla! Ciri!
Ciri!
Where's the girl?
Where's Ciri? He's looking for Ciri. I need to find Ciri. Where is Cyrilla? Have you seen Cyrilla?
Ciri! Ciri!
Where are you, Ciri?
Ciri, are you here? We're looking for Ciri.
Where's Ciri?
And occasionally fighting a monster that's some variation of a woman who has been subjugated or enslaved by an evil man, so we should feel really bad when she's slaughtered. And ultimately, the Wild Hunt will just be Aridin looking for a new boyfriend. And yes, once that trailer was dropped late Saturday night on YouTube and Twitter, the responses were unsurprising. Almost universal support for Henry Cavill, people claiming they're just not going to watch this show, and to be fair, a lot of sympathy for Liam Hemsworth. And I have to echo the sentiments from the first comment I see. Gotta respect them for keeping the comment section open. I also have to agree with this one. Remember guys, don't blame Liam, blame the producers and Lauren Hissrich. Another comment says, you had the chance to make a show that could rival Game of Thrones in its heyday. All you had to do was respect the source material and cast characters who actually look like those described in the books. Instead, you chose to inject unnecessary politics into a great series, and your contempt for the story drove away one of the best actors in the business. And now The Witcher doesn't even rival Game of Thrones at its low point. Liam pulling the heart out of the Wraith is quite symbolic of what the producers did to the show quite some time ago. Producers are like my ex, never admit their mistakes and never know when to give up. If Netflix stuck to the books like Henry tried to, they'd be printing money like crazy. And that, my friend, is the same story for a lot of beloved stories and intellectual properties, including Star Wars, which does have something in common with The Witcher. It was ruined by a woman too. And the other thing that wasn't very surprising was the ratio and the very tepid response. It's only sitting at 1.5 million views, which is great for a lot of channels, but this is Netflix with 31.7 million subscribers. I guess the most somewhat surprising news is how much The Witcher has cost, because Forbes reported Netflix revealed it's $568 million. That's right, Netflix has revealed that it has spent $568 million on the Sword and Sorcery series The Witcher, making it one of the most expensive shows of all time. Forbes continues, the gamble has paid off handsomely.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
For the streamer, as The Witcher is one of the most successful shows, having been viewed for more than 1.2 billion hours. Yeah, because nothing says success like losing the star of your show over the creative direction, having former writers of the show call it out, having the writer of the source material call the show out, and almost the entire audience calling you out and then abandoning you. Let's not forget The Witcher Season 3 premiere was down 15% from The Witcher Season 2 premiere, but the worst news is by the time they got to episode 5 of Season 3, 60% of the audience was gone. And just to pile on a little bit more, let's remind Netflix that they chose the producers of this show over Henry Cavill, and the last thing they've put out has been Blood Origin and The Witcher Season 3, which, according to Rotten Tomatoes, got 13% and 19% audience scores respectively.
The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you.
And it gets worse. Thanks to The Witcher being filmed in the UK, Forbes was indeed able to figure out how much it cost. And I'm rounding up here. It was $568 million, but there was about $97 million in tax credits, making it $459 million. But the most surprising thing, and no, it's not that season 4 budget, but we'll get to that, is Blood Origin, which was $78 million after a tax credit from $95 million, making it $29 million per episode, making each episode 2 Godzilla minus ones and the entire season 8 Godzilla minus ones. Now, if you're looking at that 42 million and thinking Netflix maybe got smart and just cut the budget, you'd be wrong. These filings only go up to December of 2023, meaning that's the amount Netflix has spent before they even started shooting. The lesson here, there was a time in Hollywood where you can be an insufferable feminist hack writer taking male-oriented epic fantasy and turning it into your own personal romantasy fanfic and get paid a lot doing it. And the best thing about being a virtue signal hire, even to this day with rare exceptions, they can't fire you. But you really showed us toxic fans Netflix is willing to spend upwards of $300 million more, making the total price of The Witcher close to $750 million, all to save face. That'll teach us you'll lose more money than we can possibly imagine. I sure hope the writers of this show, along with the writers of Wheel of Time and Willow and Blood Origin and soon to be Rings of Power, save your money. Because the bad news is you won't have any more epic fantasy to destroy, because the good news is there's no more epic fantasy to destroy. I said this in my Red Sonja video, and I'll repeat it here. There was a time I would have loved to have seen Conan or Elric adapted. That time is long gone. Elric won't get adapted because it's too much like The Witcher and Game of Thrones, because The Witcher and Game of Thrones ripped it off. And Conan won't get adapted because it's pure 100% unadulterated toxic masculinity in all the best ways. Watch tomorrow, Amazon will announce Phoebe Waller-Bridge is developing a Conan show. I jest, but that's the absolute state of epic fantasy in publishing, TV, and film. Epic fantasy is not romantasy. Surprisingly enough, a bunch of dudes don't want to watch some sword and sorcery where a bunch of lesbians sit around and talk about their feelings. Other stuff, well, that's different, but leave it to modern Hollywood to make lesbians boring. They better hope some content creators at least take a shot at roasting this show, because they'll be the only ones watching. And I think some congratulations are in order for Lauren Fulla Schmidt-Hissrich and her writers for proving one absolute truth. The worst thing to happen to storytelling in the last century is fanfic. And I guess we have to congratulate Netflix, not for spending hundreds of millions of dollars to make $0, but doing what they set out to do. They wanted to unite the Witcher book fans, the Witcher game fans, and the Henry Cavill fans. And they've done that. They hate and mock your show equally. And God knows in these dark times, we need a little unity and something to laugh at. Henry Cavill is probably laughing his ass off right now, and it's not just because James Gunn's Superman, or Superman's James Gunn, finished its worldwide theatrical run at $615 million, which, the last time I checked, although I'm not very good at math, is a lot less than the $668 million brought in by The Man of Steel in its worldwide theatrical run over 10 years ago without adjusting for inflation. And while you think that will be enough to provide some snot bubble-inducing laughter, I'm actually concerned for Henry's health right now, because Netflix decided to one-up it by dropping a full Witcher Season 4 trailer, which also happens to be the first trailer of any kind for this show, released a whopping 3 weeks before it premieres. Now, they did release a small clip a couple of weeks prior to this trailer that was ratioed and roasted into oblivion. And we've got some shocking news. The trailer is being ratioed and roasted into oblivion. But perhaps I'm being too harsh. Maybe Lauren Hissrich and her crew of feminists, after being humbled by the entire world and Henry Cavill, have decided to turn over a new leaf and, never mind.
Geralt, you've spent a lifetime battling monsters and men.
Well, actually, Geralt has spent a lot of time being nerfed in his own show, including, but not limited to, being injured in the final episode of Season 1 so the girls can fight it out. And those monsters he was fighting, more often than not, were some variation of a woman who was subjugated by a man, so we should feel really bad when she dies, including the testicles with women's faces. And spending his greatly reduced screen time chasing around the girl who's the key to everything.
Your entire being is dedicated to finding someone who you fear you failed. Your Ciri.
We are joining Geralt across the continent to reclaim her.
Whatever he's up to, Ciri's at the center of it. We need to save Ciri.
What if I can't save her?
And lo and behold, Ciri is, for the 4th season in a row, the girl who is the key to everything. And I know she eventually becomes that in the books that were published over 30 years ago, when it wasn't as much of a trope, but it is now, and this is probably why you don't take 6 years to produce 4 seasons where Geralt was never the central focus.
She's not who she says she is.
None of us are.
These are supposed to be the notorious and brutal rats from the books, although you can't really tell here. It looks like they're just standing around waiting to be offended. But I don't think there is a single image from a Netflix adaptation that represents a Netflix adaptation better than this.
What a company I've ended up with.
Ooh, maybe I spoke too soon. This is Liam Hemsworth as the Temu Witcher. And listen, I've got nothing against the guy. He's got some big shoes to fill. I just hope he got paid a lot. Oh, and I gotta give Netflix credit here. See, Disney, it's not that hard. Midgets playing dwarves. You can pump the brakes on the whole global phenomenon thing, Netflix. The only thing that's remarkable about this show is the fact that you didn't cancel it and how much money you're willing to put into Lauren Hissrich's incompetence.
Something is shifting on this continent. Vilgefortz is gathering an army.
We finally get a shot of The Witcher's main character, Yennefer, and this season's antagonist, Vilgefortz, who, surprisingly enough, is after Ciri.
Whatever he's up to, Ciri's at the center of it.
She will be mine.
Please have a seat right there.
And of course, there's a heavy dose of the obligatory feminist gobbledygook girl bossing.
Can we win this fight?
And it wouldn't be a Witcher series without hysterical women screaming over dramatically. And the most disappointing casting of all, what are we doing here, is Lawrence Fishburne. And while his resemblance to the character in the game is uncanny along with all the other Netflix casting, it's not disappointing that he was offered the role. It's disappointing that he accepted it. And it doesn't help that he's delivering lines stolen from Hillary Clinton's campaign slogan.
We are stronger together.
What's something that you always carry with you? The Witcher.
And Yasker is back, a character who was tolerable in season 1, and then they turned him into the sitcom gay best friend.
You did not mention anything about an ominous graveyard of death.
That's some brilliant writing there. Last time I checked, all graveyards are graveyards of death. Anyway, the only character development Yasker has had over 3 seasons is he's gay now. Speaking of that, I'm still waiting for my good friend Dan Vast to cover that song that Yasker sang to his boyfriend.
Of them I've had.
Then there's Liam Hemsworth's take on Geralt of Rivia, especially the voice as compared to Henry Cavill's. Not exactly seamless, but it might give you whiplash. Let's move! Dude, I was waiting for him to say bro there. He sounds like a jock. I guess gone is the stoic Geralt, and at least Henry tried to channel Doug Cockle's voice from the games. And it's not just the voice, you see Liam smirking. And this just comes off looking like a parody or a fan film, not to disrespect the fan films. To be fair, this show has always had its problems with production design, hair, makeup, costumes, and general verisimilitude, from the Nilfgaardian ballsack armor in season 1 to modern vernacular to Ciri always looking like she walked out of a salon, despite running around in the mud and the muck all the time. Then there's this girl in the Rats who went to the local Sally's Beauty Supply on the continent and got herself some Wella Blondor Volume 20 to bleach that hair. And before we go any further, I know where you're going in the comments section. My wife was a hairstylist. That's the only reason I know that.
Right.
I guess it could have been a weave, but whatever it is, Netflix and Lauren Hisrich wanted to make damn sure this epic fantasy based on Polish folklore reflected the Los Angeles they live in today. But credit to Netflix for knowing their audience and probably guessing correctly that within 30 seconds you would be bored of this trailer. So just in case you didn't notice with your own eyes that they recast Geralt, they decide to go full meta. And they start out with a little self-awareness.
The Witcher is in a state of flux.
No shit.
You are becoming something new.
How will you be reborn?
Listen, this will not be the first nor the last time a major character is recast and then dealt with the subtlety of a napalm enema. Yes, actors leave projects and characters get recast all the time. Hell, Netflix had to deal with an actress recasting herself in real life, forcing a recast in the show.
Who elected you, Vanya?
It's, Victor.
Who's Victor?
I am. It's who I've always been.
Sure, Jan.
Bet that was awkward, but this one's a little, okay, well, it's a lot different. To state the obvious, Henry Cavill was this entire show. He was actually a fan of the games and the books. And it is reported that Lauren Hisrich and Netflix were thinking about replacing him in season 2 with Liam Hemsworth, which only would have resulted in the show being canceled sooner and, hell, Netflix saving a lot of money. But the fact of the matter is, Henry couldn't save this show because the writing is abysmal. Let's go back to this line from the end of the trailer.
How will you be reborn?
Aside from the subtle meta commentary, what the f does that even mean? And before anybody gets into, well, that line will obviously have some context in the show, listen, I've seen all 3 seasons and it ain't happening. Keep in mind, these are the writers, including showrunner Lauren Hisrich, who thought it was a good idea to have Henry Cavill playing the titular character in The Witcher show only appear in 1/3 of his own series. Total running time for episodes 1 through 5, not counting credits, is 4 hours and 35 minutes. Geralt's screen time was 73 minutes, 24.8 seconds. Henry Cavill is only on screen for 27.97% of Season 3, Part 1. As far as Season 3, Part 2 is concerned, it's even worse. Total runtime for episodes 6 through 8, not counting credits, is 2 hours, 30 minutes, and 31 seconds. Henry Cavill's total screen time, 25 minutes and 3 seconds. That means Henry Cavill is only in 16.67% of the final 3 episodes. The truth of the matter is, I think everyone is in agreement on this one, including Netflix, whether they want to admit it or not. From Ted Sarandos down to Lauren Histrich to Liam Hemsworth, who hopefully is counting a lot of money to make him feel better, to everybody watching this video, to everyone who's not going to be watching this show. It is cooked. But the good news is they really are bringing people together. Every time Netflix or a fan site posts some news, a promotional photo, a clip, or a trailer, they get destroyed in the comments, and it doesn't matter what the social media platform is. And you would be hard-pressed to even find a positive comment on any social media platform, but you won't have a hard time finding comments like this. I was willing to give this a chance without Henry Cavill, but the trailers just ruined Liam Hemsworth's career in less than 3 minutes. Look at all of these strong, confident women preparing for war, while the supposed main character looks weak and constantly questions himself. Rotten Tomatoes will probably give it a 9 out of 10. It looks all right, I suppose. No, it doesn't. But it's not Geralt. Liam is a fine actor, but the shoes he is trying to fill are too big. Cavill is Geralt. Liam is discount Geralt. No matter, y'all butchered the lore anyway. Y'all, which I can say now because I live in Texas, ruined this show. It had unlimited potential, but y'all went woke. Hired writers who thought they were better than the source material and let go the only person in the entire building who wanted to stay true to the source material. It's over. Why do you think replacing the main character after 3 seasons will work at all? I'm honestly asking, how fucking retarded are you motherfuckers? Liam's great. Henry's great. The issue isn't who plays the character. In this case, it actually is, but I see your point. The issue has always been and will be the showrunners and writers messing with what makes the character so great. It's the fundamental misunderstanding that made people leave. All the haters will definitely see it just so they can trash talk every single episode.
Yup!
And the comments on the massively ratioed trailer on YouTube aren't any better. Geralt sounding like Thor, cheesy magic, still, Sam Fender background music, witches using swords, let's fucking move, building an army, pretty sure Geralt or Yen never had an army, global phenomenon, honestly at this point you just gotta laugh. What a company I've ended up with. Couldn't have said it better, Geralt. Hard pass. The Witcher 4, Love and Thunder. But I really think Dutch 14 sums it up the best. To the Netflix producers, you had one simple job: turn a best-selling book into a moving picture by taking its story and putting it on the screen with actors, music, dialogue, and landscapes as they were described, and yet you failed. Do you want to know why? Of course you don't, but I'm going to tell you anyway. As you said in one of your interviews, you wanted to tell your own story in The Witcher's world, and the problem is that you and the writers you employ are nobody. And nobody cares about your stories. What I care about is Sapkowski's stories. His novels are a global phenomenon, not your series. The only phenomenon here is that you will still have a job and how your families managed to click 10,000 upvotes for this trailer. Well said, and we'll end it with this. Fans, fix the writing. Henry Cavill, fix the writing. Netflix, no, here's Liam Hemsworth. Fans, we're not going to watch it. Netflix, fans are so toxic. Oh, and I promise you, that's how the writers for The Witcher, including Lauren Histrich, have rationalized it in their head. They have actually written a masterpiece, and if it wasn't for those pesky toxic fans, they would have probably gotten their 7 seasons. Instead of it being canceled after 5. Oh, and in my last video, we talked about this show costing $500 million. Well, now it's been reported that you can add another $200 million to the total, and now this disaster has cost $750 million. And when it's all said and done for Lauren Histrich anyway, who wanted to go down in history as the first female showrunner of a hit male-skewing epic fantasy, will go down in obscurity as just the latest woman who has ruined male-skewing epic fantasy. And as far as those toxic fans are concerned, well, Netflix has made the same mistake as every studio in Hollywood by intentionally mislabeling the passionate fan as the toxic fan, so they can blame them for all their failures. And I'll leave you on the wise words of Henry Cavill, which might explain to Netflix why he's so popular, and maybe they'll learn that if they had listened to him, he would still be around and the fans would still be around.
It's a Sarilla! Siri!
Siri! Where's the girl?
Where's Siri?
I'm gay.
He's looking for Siri. I need to find Siri. Where is Cirilla? Have you seen Cirilla?
Siri! Siri!
Where are you, Siri?
Siri, Siri, are you here?
Gay!
We're looking for Siri.
Where's Siri?
Siri disappeared. Siri.
Anything to get Siri back, right?
Actually, I'm a lesbian.
Geralt, have you had any more wild dreams about Siri? Has he told you about Siri, Regis? What if I can't save her?
Well, there's still no sign of Siri.
We know Siri is connected.
I'm a lesbian.
Siri. Siri.
Siri is what we all need. Everyone wants Siri. I do want to save Siri.
Lesbian. Find Siri. Find Siri.
Want Siri? Siri will be safe.
I need to protect Siri.
Find Siri.
Wait, where's Siri? Siri is still at risk.
It goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that Netflix's The Witcher will go down in the annals of pop culture history as just another epic fantasy adaptation completely destroyed by ego, hubris, modernity, the message, and a clear disdain for the source material. And that was before season 4 premiered, but now that it is upon us, the only thing keeping this in the zeitgeist of pop culture is people continuing to marvel that this show is still being made. And what a journey it has been to get here. When The Witcher premiered way back in 2019, it was well received by the audience. And there were more than a few outlets and fans saying that The Witcher could be the heir apparent to Game of Thrones. Unfortunately, it was all downhill from there. Henry Cavill, prior to season 2, in the kindest way possible, tried to warn us that showrunner Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich was going to stray from the source material.
The showrunner has a particular vision for the show and for the characters in the show. The books, certainly the first few, is very much from a Geralt perspective, with the shift of the showrunner's vision where it's an ensemble cast more so than a singular lead, and the perspective is shifted to be almost more of a Cirilla Yennefer perspective. It's about finding my character's place within that vision and making sure that I do everything I can to be as faithful to the source material as possible that I can be within the structure set out for me.
And wouldn't you know it, The Witcher Season 2 strayed from the source material, turning The Witcher into the Yennefer. And unsurprisingly, the ratings and the audience scores went down. And then everybody started calling out everybody, including former X-Men 97 and Witcher writer Bo DeMeo calling out Hissrich and her team for openly mocking the source material in the writer's room. Hissrich calling out Henry Cavill, Andrei Sapkowski, the creator and writer of The Witcher, calling out Lauren Hissrich.
Maybe I gave them some ideas, but they never listened. They never listened.
Where Hissrich and her team took time off from bastardizing the lore of the book so they could pervert the lore of the game. And this can't be undersold, turning the leader of the Wild Hunt, the very formidable Aridin, into a sad gay man. After that, season 3 came out and there was another dramatic loss in viewership. And it's at this point the show was essentially dead. But Hollywood, being no stranger to reanimating the corpse of a franchise only to defile it, carried on and announced poor Liam Hemsworth would be the replacement for Henry Cavill, and I hope he got a lot of money. Then things went quiet for a good long while until just over a month before the release of season 4, Netflix decided to drop a clip and a trailer. Both were ratioed into oblivion. But it doesn't end there, because every single promotional post on every social media platform was essentially ratioed into oblivion. And then they made the worst mistake possible, actually releasing the show. And let's just say the response hasn't been spectacular. If you go over to Rotten Tomatoes, it's got a 60% from the corporate critics, largely padded by sites you've never heard of. But if you go over to the top critics, it's at 33%. And Metacritic has it at about a 60. And there's the audience scores, which is currently sitting at 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, 1.8 on Metacritic, and IMDb is averaging about a 4 out of 10. And yes, The Witcher is getting its worst reviews ever outside of Blood Origin. Liam Hemsworth is so cautiously not awful, all while being not good either, as Geralt of Rivia, that he's basically invisible in The Witcher Season 4. Someone forgot to CG The Witcher into his scenes in post. Liam Hemsworth isn't the problem with The Witcher's 4th season. The Netflix fantasy epic continues its downward spiral, with a bloated and mostly boring new chapter. The Witcher Season 4 review, Liam Hemsworth is as charismatic as a bollard in a wig. The Witcher Season 4 review, look how Netflix massacred my boy. The first season of the fantasy series without Henry Cavill is dragged down by the Hemsworth in the room. Now, I have to agree with some of the corporate critics that Liam Hemsworth is not the primary problem with The Witcher Season 4. No, the responsibility of that lays at the feet of one woman. The aforementioned Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, who has finally gotten everything she wanted, complete control of an epic fantasy series on Netflix without the shackles of Henry Cavill. And how did it turn out? Well, about as bad as you would expect. It's time to talk about The Witcher Season 4. And they waste no time getting to the cringe because they start with a double recap, including an over 2-minute previously on where they do not show Henry Cavill's face, and The Witcher doesn't utter a line of dialogue. To be fair, it kind of fits because he's barely in his own show. And then they follow that up with just over 8 minutes of reshot scenes from previous seasons with Liam Hemsworth, including the beach off with Vilgefortz. And it plays out like a parody. Think Austin Powers with Tom Cruise, except not played for laughs, yet just as funny. And I'm guessing most viewers needed this because most people dipped out at season 2, and I'm also guessing that after this 8 minutes, most people dipped out. And just in case you didn't think that was the show displaying how self-aware they were, they go full meta and transition to an old man who was the guy who played the Blackfish from Game of Thrones, telling a story about The Witcher, but then a young girl comes in and tells him he's doing it wrong and tells the story better. And then convinces herself with this picture of a girl with no face that she is a central part of the story.
You know Ciri's important to me. The whole saga is. Seeing this, I think that's me.
And this is a great example of how Lauren Hissrich cherry picks things from the books and then completely turns them into fanfic feminist gobbledygook. In the books, Nimue is inspired by the stories she listens to. In the show, she takes over telling the story and tells it better than the man, and it doesn't get more meta than that except for the telling it better part. Am I right, Lauren? Anywho, what is a complete departure from previous seasons, the plot goes something like this. The evil mage Vilgefortz is looking for Ciri. Yennefer is looking for Ciri. Geralt of Rivia is looking for Ciri. Nilfgaardian Emperor Amir, after finding out he has a fake Ciri, is looking for Ciri. And a new character, Leo Barnhart, is looking for Ciri. And now that I think about it, Ciri is looking for Ciri with her pals, the Rats, who are, without question, the most insufferable and annoying characters ever put to screen in a fantasy adaptation in the history of time. Oh, and we will get to them. Season 4 is based, let's just say it, on not the best books in Andrzej Sapkowski's series, Baptism of Fire and Tower of Swallows. Baptism of Fire is particularly bad, but somehow Lauren Hissrich has made it worse. While the book mainly focuses on the titular character, The Witcher, the show focuses on Yennefer, Ciri, and Geralt. So let's start with the least significant of the three, Geralt of Rivia, who is on a journey to find, you guessed it, Ciri, who he believes is in Nilfgaard, and time is running out. So of course he finds time to get distracted once or twice per episode, including saving a woman from therapists.
I'll take the rapists for 200. That's therapists.
And isn't it amazing that this world based on Polish and European folklore that is so diverse isn't when it comes to the therapists? Anyway, on this long, arduous journey where, spoilers, they don't get anywhere near finding Ciri, Geralt and Jaskier get caught by Redanian intelligence. Also, they could have one more scene between Jaskier and his boyfriend, King Radovid, who was a character in the books that Lauren Hissrich aged up from 13 so Jaskier can be gay. And then they broke up. And the rest of the ragtag group Geralt is traveling with are some dwarves, and hey, gotta give credit where credit is due. Props to Netflix for hiring dwarves to play dwarves. Cahir, who's on his redemption arc after kidnapping Ciri, he finally realizes she is the girl who's the key to everything. Geralt originally wants to kill him and lets him go, and then doesn't like him, but then eventually likes him. Milva, who was supposed to look like this in the source material, and yes, the resemblance is uncanny. And then there's Lawrence Fishburne as Regis the vampire, and again, the likeness to the character in the game is uncanny. And while Lawrence Fishburne is good in everything he does, let's just say his character of Regis leans into the age-old trope of the, I'm not gonna say it.
The American Society of Magical Negroes.
If you do your job well, you will run out of monsters to kill, will you not? Your entire being is dedicated to finding someone who you fear you failed.
Whatever you dream, pay attention.
not to the fear, but the joy. It will lead you. You've spent a lifetime battling monsters and men. Fear has become a familiar guidepost to you. I sense in you a deeper desire for balance.
We saving the damn world.
And again, while this entire journey is in the books, in this show, it only serves as a side quest that goes nowhere. And instead of doing what a talented writer would do, you know, weaving your character's background in and out of the story as it progresses through some show and some tell, they stop abruptly in episode 5 of season 4 to give us a character info dump by campfire. And everybody gets to tell their story, including Yasker's turning into a musical and Regis's ending up being an anime, which arguably is the best part of the show, but it doesn't make it any less jarring. But when we're following Geralt, when it's not being cringe, it's excruciatingly boring. And when we're not getting info dumps, we're getting people sharing their feelings in forests. Geralt and his crew spend an entire episode thinking about crossing a river, then they spend another episode crossing the river, but the worst bit is Geralt sits out an entire episode of his own series. He only fights 3 creatures, and you guessed it, 2 of them are tragically misunderstood women. In the end, he does fight a troll to hold a bridge, but it's also he could be knighted by, admittedly, a girl boss from the books that was perfectly adapted as a girl boss in the show, so he could become Geralt of Rivia. And if it wasn't clear before, it most definitely is now. Lauren Hissrich's least favorite character in her Witcher series is the Witcher. Everyone's gonna say poor Liam Hemsworth, and he doesn't seem like a bad guy, but let's keep in mind that he put himself in this impossible situation that he was never gonna live up to. That being said, he wasn't awful, he was blandly competent. Having no knowledge of the books, he plays it as safe as possible, which actually makes things worse because he has 0 presence and 0 charisma. He is the Temu Witcher, and it comes off as a parody, and I'm gonna date myself here, but it looks like he stepped out of a I can't believe it's not butter commercial. Since most of you aren't gonna watch this show, I guess the best or worst example of the downgrade from Henry to Liam would be his constantly trying to recapture the meme from season 1. My unsolicited advice for Liam, don't listen to the internet, get that bag, give no fucks, and continue with your himbo Geralt. This brings us to the trope that has been completely played out, particularly in fantasy and sci-fi. The girl who is the key to everything. Some recent examples just off the top of my head. Picard season 1 had the girl who's the key to everything. Willow had the girl who's the key to everything. The Acolyte had the girls who were the key to everything. And hell, the Rings of Power even made Galadriel the girl who is the key to everything. But there is a key to the girl who is the key to everything, making her likable, something this show fails to do. A good example of the girl who was the key to everything would be Lilu from The Fifth Element. She's engaging, likable, vulnerable, empathetic, tough, determined, everything Ciri isn't. She is essentially just a MacGuffin who always finds herself in a state of being lost. While in the books, it definitely feels like there's more going on. In the show, it just feels like everybody's dropped everything and we're just looking for Ciri for 4 seasons in a row. But what makes Ciri's story in this season orders of magnitude worse is the company she keeps. The rats. In the books, they're supposed to be rascally, flamboyant, yet dangerous, murderous bandits. In the show, they come off as annoying Twitch streamers, or in other words, Twitch streamers, cast by the Netflix HR department. And just like Twitch streamers, they're always stealing other people's stuff and essaying each other. And it's just a joke about the stealing other people's stuff part. I don't care that they react to content. And yes, these are the rats and the epitome of the Netflix adaptation. There is the fat, cowardly white guy named Ass E, the skinny white guy named Kaylee, who is a therapist, the diverse lesbian tweaker named Reef, Discount Tariel, dumb white elf Gisseler, who thinks he's in charge and is supposed to be in the books, but the real boss is the black lesbian Missile, who was supposed to look like this from the source material. Again, the resemblance is uncanny. Now, Ciri's time with the rats is supposed to be her descent into darkness and her spiritual low point. Instead, we get lesbian Ciri. And to head off and put to bed, for lack of a better term, any it's in the books arguments, because this is another perfect example of, again, for lack of a better term, Lauren Hissrich cherry picking something from a time of content and removing all complexity for the sake of modernity. Therapist Kaylee tries to assault Ciri and is stopped by Missile, who goes on to assault Ciri, who does eventually end up in a relationship with Missile, but it's a lot more like Stockholm Syndrome than anything else. In the show, they make the assault consensual. And we all know the reason why, because there is no way in hell modern Hollywood would depict a diverse member of the alphabet community assaulting anyone. And there's no way in hell anyone from modern Hollywood would depict their relationship as anything other than loving. And that's inherently the problem with casting based on identity. It removes all complexity and makes everything homogeneously diverse. The best part is somebody at Netflix thought it was a good idea to base an entire show on the rats, but later on, someone else at Netflix probably thought better of it, and they decided to edit it down into a movie and dropped it along with The Witcher Season 4 without telling anybody, and after watching it, I understand why. But there is some good news. There is a happy ending to this story that we'll get to later, because we still haven't gotten to the main protagonist of the Witcher series, the Yennefer. And her part in this is indicative of everything wrong with this show and modern fantasy. Lauren Hissrich basically took a couple of scenes from the books, completely changed them, then amplified it into the most prominent story in season 4. Why? Because there wasn't quite enough female representation. Are you tired of the term girl boss? Well, hashtag me too. But Hollywood isn't, because this season we get to see General Yennefer of Vengerberg travel the continent to gather her feminist avengers, including Fringilla, Francesca, Philippa, Margarita, Triss Marigold, and of course their fearless leader, Yennefer of Vengerberg. And yes, I completely agree with you, dear audience member. The resemblances to the characters in the source material are uncanny. Oh, and we can't forget the lesbian dwarf, Zemer. And for all the it's in the books people, well, never mind the fact that in Baptism of Fire, Yennefer never formally joins the Lodge of Sorcerers here. She starts it, names it, and then, despite them being a bunch of sorcerers, has them trained in hand-to-hand combat, with one of my favorite aspects of it, constant affirmation.
We can do anything. We're charmed.
Strike me down for saying so, but not the worst. We might actually pull this off, because you're a leader. And you're a damn fine leader.
And yes, Vesemir is back, and just like Geralt of Rivia, he's played by a completely different actor. And he is there to train the novices and the mages in their hand-to-hand combat, and quite frankly, he does a pretty good job because they pick it up in half a montage scene. And all of this is in preparation for an imminent attack from Vilgefortz, who is after Ciri because everyone else is. And once again, Battle Yennefer and her team of feminist Avengers get the best and most prominent action scene in a series called The Witcher. And this is the episode that Geralt sits out of his own show, all to make way for warrior Yennefer and lesbian Ciri. And the worst part about it is, they kill off Vesemir, who's supposed to live all the way to the Wild Hunt. And to add insult to injury, because of course Yennefer wins the battle against Vilgefortz, she portals over to Geralt, tells him, and Liam Hemsworth can't even manage to look distraught. They just kind of breeze past it and get into PG-13 sexy time. Put simply, this show is ass. They waste so much time on Yennefer and her feminist Avengers and lesbian Ciri and blow past important stuff that might make the world feel a little fuller, like Graham McTavish's Dijkstra, who's great but barely in it, and the same could be said for James Purefoy. Yes, he's actually in this series. And Nilfgaardian Emperor Amir is just an afterthought in this and a complete idiot. But that's not the biggest waste of all, because there is, surprisingly enough, a really good character in The Witcher Season 4. Sharto Copley's Leo Barnhart. He's the second best in this entire series next to Henry Cavill's Geralt. He's a human bounty hunter who kills witchers, and he's played to perfection. Imagine just an entire series of Henry Cavill's Geralt fighting monsters and Leo Barnhart. I'm in. And he gives us, without question, the most satisfying scene of the entire series, when he hunts down and kills all of the rats brutally. Now, in truth, they sought him out and he made them pay for it, and I was cheering. I was applauding. The only problem is I wasn't supposed to be happy when Ciri's black lesbian girlfriend and her fellow Twitch streamers were brutally murdered, but I was. And their heads getting cut off and pickled was just chef's kiss. And that wild hunt they were teasing all through season 3, not a sign of it here, which is just as well, because Vesemir's dead. Most Witcher fans figured this show didn't have a chance in hell without Henry Cavill, and after watching it, they were proven completely right, but there were a lot of unintentional laughs on the way. The Witcher season 4 could be best summed up like this: boring Liam as Geralt on an inane journey with Lawrence Fishburne narrating his every inner thought, lesbian Ciri, the gathering of girl bosses, verbal diarrhea exposition by campfire, more more lesbian Siri, gay Yasker, feelings in forests, more lesbian Siri, the annoying as fuck rats, more lesbian Siri, all centered around General Yennefer and her feminist Avengers. And if you think about it, nothing was really accomplished this season, and they only have one more to go, but let's hope that Geralt's in every episode of his own show for its final season, where they're going to have to cram in the events of a couple of books and a game, a season that's already shot and in the can. And the total budget for this show from season 1 to season 5 is almost $250 million. But you gotta give it up for the woman of the hour getting one over on Netflix, getting a lot of money, and destroying yet another fantasy show in the process. And that would be head writer and showrunner Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, who was handpicked by Netflix partially due to her work with the streamer in the past, and partially, maybe mostly, due to the post-Me Too era virtue signal hiring. That's right, casting a female showrunner of an intellectual property that has a predominantly male audience. Sure, unlike other castings like this, Lauren Hissrich has some writing experience in shows like The West Wing, Private Practice, Parenthood, Power, Daredevil, The Defenders, and The Umbrella Academy. But just because you have some past writing credits with mostly dramas and some superhero fare, doesn't necessarily mean you have the chops to adapt epic fantasy. Just ask Jennifer Hutchinson, who used to write for Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and now writes for The Rings of Power. And it's corporate decisions like this, based on ideology and modernity, that have given us this current era of modern fantasy, which should have been a golden age, but instead it's homogeneously diverse. The best example of this, these 4 images, as posted from our good friend John A. Douglas, are from 4 different fantasy shows, including The Witcher. Can you tell the difference? Of course not, but they all have something in common: failing miserably. The Witcher was supposed to be 7 seasons, but it was abruptly cut down to 5 after Henry Cavill left, and Lauren Hissrich is lucky she got that. But she does say, are there more stories? Maybe. Well, actually, there's a lot because you skipped them, but this one has to end at this point. So I think it's a nice time for all of us to step back a little bit. And that probably has a lot to do with the audience stepping back a long time ago. And The Witcher showrunner also addressed the backlash to the show. No one's taking the books away. No one's taking the video games away. Everyone can have their version of The Witcher. Unfortunately for you, Lauren, it turns out no one wanted your version. And yes, that sounded a lot like what she said in 2020, and she delivered as promised. And the fans who said they weren't going to watch this crap after Henry left kept their promise. From MovieWeb, The Witcher Season 4 viewership crashes as Henry Cavill exit backlash takes a toll. Season 4 The Witcher viewership suffers 50% decline. From Forbes, The Witcher Season 4 viewership has totally tanked on Netflix. From Collider, The Witcher Season 4's viewership takes a massive hit as fans debate Henry Cavill's departure. The Witcher Season 4 records worst viewership count in franchise history. And from IGN, The Witcher Season 4 suffers dramatic drop in viewership compared to previous seasons. It never cracked #1 on the Netflix top 10, and at time of recording, it is completely off the list. And to Netflix's great relief, most people will have completely forgot this came out, and there's gonna be another season. Let's not forget, Netflix spent an additional $250 million for season 4 and 5 just to save face. And Lauren Hissrich will go down as the creator of one of the most predictable and epic failures in Netflix history.
Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.